we're going to let love lead us to stop. We aren't going to be led by our schedule today. We're going to let love lead us. We're going to let Jesus write the story for this day. And so we missed it. And I looked up and it was like next stop was like literally 20 miles away. And there was no safe way to be able to back that baby up down the shoulder of the highway. It's just not going to happen. And so like I was just kind of like struggling there for a minute. And I looked over at Mark and I was like, man, I just blew it. I need you to keep me accountable. We should have stopped. I should have stopped. I should have seen it ahead of time. We should have just like stopped over because like this is what love does. Love just like, stops and when it is safe. Come on, hear me really well. And so like I looked at Mark and was like, the next everybody we see today, we're just going to stop. Which was really code language for like every time we're going to stop, Mark, you're going to do vehicle maintenance, and I'm going to talk to the people because I know nothing about vehicles at all. Like, have you ever, you felt this way before, come on, haven't you? Like, some of you aren't very gifted at technology, so you go to the Geek Squad at Best Buy, and you're like, listen, I know nothing. I just know the power button, and that's it, baby. I know my password. I know the apps. I know, like, how to get into stuff. I got to call my kids, my grandkids. It's broken. The thing's busted, whatever. That's how I feel about every single car. And so later during the day, Mark kind of smirked and was like, okay, we'll stop or whatever. We were driving somewhere between Hopkinton and Concord, and all of a sudden we were off on this little side street because like I got, I was navigating us the wrong way, and all of a sudden we look down and there is a late 90s model Suburban pulled over the side of the road with emergency lights flashing, and there were two middle-aged women standing outside, and I just pulled over and put on our emergency lights to give more room because it was a single-lane highway and it was super dangerous. And so we get out there and we're like, what on earth is going on? And so like Mark literally pops open the hood, crawls under the truck, under the Suburban, and he's like diagnosing it, and I have no idea, like I am not helpful whatsoever. And the ladies were like, I don't know, we were just driving up our vehicle, like from upstate New York, trying to get it to Burlington, Vermont, so our daughter can have a vehicle at school. And all of a sudden, Mark runs back into the truck, which I thought, we did not bring any tools for vehicle maintenance on this trip. This is insane. He comes out of the truck with like duct tape, zip ties, and bungee cords and rope, and crawls up under the truck, and literally they were dragging this huge, I don't even know what it's called, huge piece of equipment alongside that highway, so much it was like sparking everywhere. And so I just used this opportunity, and the ladies were looking at us and were like, okay, so who are you? We began to tell them the story. I told the story about you guys, and we had several hundred people all over the state of New Hampshire, gave a day away, serving different nonprofits from Hanover to Hampton Beach. And just began talking like, they were kind of curious, and they just kind of kept asking questions, but I didn't know if they were asking questions because they were really curious or because they were setting us up for something later on. And so like I'm trying to be as kind and polite as possible, and meanwhile Mark crawls up out from underneath the car, and he's like, his green shirt's like dirty black now, and it's like ruined. And so like he goes out and he's like, oh, we're all set. Use their language on her. And the ladies were like, that's awesome. And we're like, we'll follow you to the gas station. And the lady looked at us, and I was like, they were like, thank you, thank you for stopping. And I was kind of like, I know a lot of people are this way. I don't know if you guys are this way, but a lot of people, when they have vehicle maintenance issues, when their car breaks down and they're like in a completely different state than they live, they're usually like, God, we haven't talked in a while, but if you could just send somebody here faster than like 2.5 hours the tow truck is predicted for us to be here, that would be awesome. We're those guys! Yeah. And the lady's like, not fazed, stoic, straight face. We're like, no, we're not those people. We don't pray. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just like over and over, God is humbling me all throughout the day. Over and over and over. Pride would be like me not mentioning to Mark, hey, I think we should have stopped. I know we should have stopped to help. I know we should have stopped to help. And like pride, the second layer would have been like, hey, I'm just kind of like here trying to love these people, no strings attached. No, like you don't have to join us at the beach for the pizza party at the very end at Hampton. Like none of that. It's just like, hey, we're here to love people the way that Jesus loves people, and that is it. And all of a sudden get busted in the face like God's like, listen, Josh, this is just not about you at all. One of the very first books that I read after following Jesus was a book called The Purpose-Driven Life, and now it's called What on Earth Am I Here For by Rick Warren. The first line, New York Times bestseller, sold millions, tens of millions of books. The first line in that book is like the line that you would use to sell millions of books. The first line reads, it's not about you. That's awesome, isn't it? It's not about you. Like you just imagine like the tension of like, oh man, that's just kind of like a kick straight to the throat. And most of the time, we don't really like getting kicked to the throat. I think most of the time, we as people are kind of avoid it. And all throughout Jesus' life, all throughout the Gospels, we see this thing happening over and over and over. He famously said this, and he said it, and it is so famous that people that don't even follow Jesus know that he said it, and they pull it out of their pocket when, like, Jesus followers aren't living this way, and they're like, boom! And here it is. This comes from the Gospel of Luke. Jesus said, all of those who exalt themselves will be humbled. It was like, I can totally relate to that, but maybe I didn't want to relate to that on that day. All of those who exalt themselves, all of us who put ourselves up here, will be humbled. Like God is going to remind us that it is not about me. You had any of those moments this summer? Over and over and over, the next sentence of that is a beautiful contrast, and where Jesus says, all of those who humble themselves will be exalted. So here's how it works. If you exalt yourself, you will be humbled. If you humble yourself, you will be exalted. This is what it looks like for humility in the kingdom of Jesus. The kingdom that Jesus came here to establish on earth, it's like, it's not like, look at me, it's not like all about me, it's actually like an even better story. And I don't know if you've had moments in your life where you were just like, things didn't really go as you wanted them to, and so maybe for you it was like, man, maybe you were too arrogant to say, I made a mistake. Maybe that mistake grew you a little bitter. Maybe after that, your bitterness grew into like this chronic, this chronic ability to critique every single person around you. What happens when, though? What happens when we are alone with ourselves and we really, truly are humbled? And it wasn't because we humbled ourselves, but it was because we exalted ourselves and we were humbled. I think sometimes humility in our world is like the very thing that every single one of us are starving for. Humility is what we want to exist within our close relationships. Humility is what we hope for whenever we go to work tomorrow morning. Like, humility is what we want whenever we show up to a family gathering and there's like a bunch of tension and there's battles and there's a lot of unspoken things or spoken things that need to be made right. And we just hope, like, man, I hope that people don't walk around, puff out their chest and pretend like everything's okay when everything is really not okay. That's exalting yourself instead of humbling yourself. Like, what would humility look like in our life today? What would it look like for you? What would it look like for you to not exalt yourself, to not walk into a room or live a life that's like, it's all about me, but to live a story that's like, it's not about me. It's not about me even a little bit. There are a couple of people who've been part of the movement for the last several months and have been on this journey of following Jesus, and they spoke candidly this week about like how humility has snuck up on them and surprised them, and it is my honor to get to introduce just a little piece of them to you. This is the story of Dan Michelle Fraser. Check this out.
So I am Dan Fraser, and this is my wife Michelle Fraser. We own Great New Hampshire Restaurants, which is the managing company that runs T-Bone's, Cactus Jacks, and Carpet Grill Restaurant.
So we started coming to movement. I work with Kristen Chapman, and we do a workout class together. And she had a 603 t-shirt on, and I love t-shirts from different places. I said, "What's your t-shirt about? I want one." She's like, "Why would you want a t-shirt? You don't know what it's about." So she told me what it was about, and we were going through a season, and I asked if we could come, and she said anytime. And I didn't go right away, and I kind of kept it to myself. And a few months had passed, and I said that I wanted to check it out, and told Dan about it, and he wanted to come as well. And my daughter Emma also wanted to come, so we came, and we've been coming ever since. I think it's very easy to talk about a lot of things, but the second you bring up church, and I just stayed true to myself and realized this is where I want to be, and Jesus is who I want to follow, and I want it for my family. So anybody who doesn't think they're a leader and they can't lead, I would just say that's what we're trying to do. There's a new beginning for us, and it's pretty awesome. And we're going to be part of it.
Our whole house is different. Our experience at home is different. Our dinner time is different. The interaction with the children after dinner is different. We spend time with each other instead of going off to our rooms and playing video games and whatnot, or in the living room together, interacting, watching television, and it's just a different feel in our house.
A lot is different. Yeah, I feel, for me personally, I feel like I have more honesty. Because I see the baby in very glasses and I see things very differently. I feel like I'm more patient. I feel like I listen more. Maybe step into the situation a little bit more. Where beforehand I think I dwelled on my own self versus what was going on around me.
Recently, an experience I had was with my partner. He's the CEO and my boss of the company. And he reached out to me and asked if I would start taking his mom to church. And he said, the spiritual thing isn't really my gig. If you can take her to church, it'd mean the world to me. Yeah, if you're going to be there and listen intensively.
Being a good leader, you have to be compassionate. Willing to step into somebody else's shoes. Just taking a step back and realizing what somebody else is going through. You don't always know what's going on between them and somebody smiling with their eyes. I know that I get work with my team in particular that I lead is with honesty and compassion and open ear and just letting them know that I'm there at any point in time.
Recently, I was in one of the restaurants, and a young lady, our general manager at our door, I was asking her how she was doing, and she said, good. And I kind of hesitated, and I thought a little more. I said, how you really doing? And she said, not so great. So we had an opportunity to catch up with each other and talk, and through her sharing, she mentioned that there was something missing in her life, and an emptiness she felt, which opened the door for me to share about my experience with movement, finding Jesus, being baptized, and the experiences we have here at movement. And she started coming to church. I think the greatest quality in leadership is humility, and I lived a life without humility for a long time, and ran a pretty powerful position in a pretty big company. And since finding Jesus, going through a program of recovery, coming to movement, and being baptized, and meeting everyone in the congregation, it's helped me with humility. It's helped me be a better leader.
Yeah. Check. We're good. I'm so sorry, guys. That was my fault. Right? God just keeps giving me chances to practice humility right before our eyes, all right? I unplugged the mic, and it was my fault, and the guys were back there scrambling. I was like, what's going on? And so anyway, that is my fault. So who are the people for you that are the hardest to serve? Who is it for you? Who are the people that drive you the most crazy? Who is it for you that you're like, man, I'll go 130 miles out of my way at work to not even come in close contact with these people? Who are those people for you? Every single one of us have had experiences like that, and the anecdote to that, as pride begins to grow inside, the anecdote for pride that we're going to see in the example that Jesus gives us today is that we empty ourselves when we are tempted to exalt ourselves. When we are tempted to exalt ourselves and put us up here and say, whoa, not my job description, like, love, you aren't going to lead me over there because if I bend that person's ear, I'll lose an hour of my workday. It's like, God, how do you want to grow me? Because I know you know me. Nobody knows me the way that you know me. And if you're anything like me, it's like emptying yourself is this constant decision, is a constant daily decision to live a story that doesn't point back to yourself. And so we see this in Jesus. Like, if anybody would have had the right to be like, this one's about me. This moment is really, truly all about me.
If there would have ever been a time throughout all of human history, if there would have been like an awards ceremony, an awards banquet, this would have been it. If there would have been like one day for love to take the day off, it might have been this day. If there would have been like one day that could have had the potential for love to take the day off, this would have been the day. As we're walking through, we have these awesome guides that our leaders put together. And if you're brand new to following Jesus, we want to give these to you back in the green zone. They're literally like a walk through the Gospel of John with a journal and stuff for you to reflect on. It's incredible. One of our leaders, we're on day 36 right now. It's a 60-day journey, and it's okay if you're a couple days behind. Just say it out loud. I'm behind, all right? And pick it back up. That's okay. We're all human, all right? We're on day 36. And yesterday, if you are on track, which would be like the extremely small minority of us, all right, you read some words from Corey, and he talked about the death of Jesus' friend Lazarus, and which is what Elisa taught us about last week, and it was a beautiful thing. And some stuff happened throughout Jesus' story, and he comes in through Jerusalem, and they lay down palm branches, and they're like, Hosanna, Hosanna, great is he who comes in the name of the Lord, and everyone's like lifting him up, and like what happens later on, you think like there's going to be an after party, and the entourage is going to be there, and there's going to be every kind of bacon on earth that is going to be right there in this room, in this celebration, and it was nothing like that. Like you would have thought that this would have been the meal where Jesus would have sat at the head of the table, and he would have exalted himself. Hey, everybody, over here. This seat right here that is designed for the person with the greatest authority, it is going to be mine. I'm not going to get up. You guys are going to come serve me. Bring the little trays with like the little cheese cubes and the grapes. Just bring them to me all night long. We're just going to do this over and over and over. But it was about this time, and it was coming up to the Passover feast, and the town was getting ready to be flooded. And Jesus knew that the time had come, John 13, beginning in verse 1, the time had come for him to leave this world, go to the Father, and having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. Love leads. It's like, wait a minute, we haven't seen the full extent of your love yet? This is what I love about following Jesus. It's like we convince ourselves, we've already heard this story, we've already seen the best there is. And he's like, no, wait, you haven't seen anything yet. The fullest extent of my love, into which I love the newest version of the NIV translate it this way. He loved them to the very end. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that to have a friend like that? How beautiful would that be to have relationships with your family that are like that? We loved one another until the very end. Verse 2, the evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Come on. What do you do? What do you do in this moment? What would you do if you were in this room and you were in a place of authority? Would you then exalt yourself and remind everyone else of their lowly position? What would you do? Like, what would you do? What would you do in this moment? Like, I know, like, for myself, pride would begin to bubble up, and the arrogance would eat me alive, and I would be bitter, and I would literally probably, like, criticize exactly what was getting ready to happen. Because I'm God, because Jesus is God, Jesus could have been like, hey, wait a minute, we were getting ready to have a party, but something is going down in Problem Town right now. And all of a sudden, Jesus looks at everything going on in the room, knowing that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning from God. He got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. Come on. There is so much beautiful theology in this one verse. Don't miss it. Everything is under the power and the authority of Jesus. He's God. Everything, everybody knows that he had come from God and he is returning to God. Come on. When you know where you're going, you go with humility. When you know where you're going, you can have the ability to go with humility. Jesus knew where he was going to end up. Yes, the evil one prompted Judas to betray Jesus, and yes, he was going to sell him out for a bag of change. All right, come on. But Jesus, knowing all of this, he did not exalt himself to the highest position. You know what he did? He emptied himself. He emptied himself. He took off his outer clothing, which was like a symbol to everybody around him, saying like, this is a man of authority, this is a rabbi, this is a teacher. He took it off, got up from the meal, wrapped a towel around his waist, and everybody knew what he was getting ready to do. He was taking on the nature of a slave that would have met every single one of them at the front door and said, all right, everybody, lift up your robes. We're going to wash feet now. And Jesus gave that servant the night off. After that, Jesus walked over to the water and poured into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him, symbolizing, I am one of you. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you don't realize now what I'm doing, but later on, you're going to understand. Like when love leads you towards living a story of humility, you'll never be understood right off the bat. Like Peter was one of the first leaders of the church in Jerusalem, and I just know that if I was making up this story about Jesus and it was all false and it was all just some fairy tale, I probably would not have included all the parts that would have made me look like a complete fool. And Peter's like, listen, no. You are not ever going to wash my feet. Could you imagine this dialogue with Jesus? He had just taken off his outer robe, and Peter's like trying to put a pause on this thing, and Jesus says, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. In other words, hey, Peter, this is an object lesson. I'm getting ready to teach everyone something here. Don't object. Come on, stay with me. Then, Lord, Simon Peter said, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Humility is always going to be misunderstood by people who aren't humble. But humility will always be the best story. Humility will always be the key to changing people's hearts. Could you imagine? Like what was it going through Jesus' head in this moment? Jesus said, a person who has already had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you. Verse 11, for he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he actually said, not every single person, not every one of you is clean. Verse 12, so important. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes, returned to his place, and he said, do you guys understand what I've done for you? Love leaves no one out. Jesus was inclusive to the very end. And I imagine like many of us have people who are hard to serve. We have people that are hard to live a life of humility. Not like, and I think most of the time we would look at their life and say, man, they're hard-hearted or they're mean or they're arrogant, they're bitter, they're critical, they're all these things. And they're kind of like, I think Jesus is giving me a pass to not let me love them. I think Jesus is saying, like, wait a minute, time out. I loved someone so close to me who sold me out. And I'm asking you to do the same thing. I'm asking you to take off all of your influence, all of your authority, lay down all of your titles, and I'm asking you to be an extra in the story that I am writing that goes a little bit like this. God loved the world so much that he sent me here so that anybody who believes in me will not spend eternity separated from me, but will spend eternity with me. Are you with me? And all of a sudden, I imagine the posture of Jesus as he is washing every single one of the disciples' feet. And using my own imagination, I imagine he saved Judas to the very end. And I bet he was like this. His heart was for change. I bet he woke up every day saying, God, if you could change his heart, change his heart. Today, maybe today is going to be the day. God, will you change his heart? Like if we can't pray that prayer, then something inside of us is broken. And we've got to let God deal with that. We've got to admit it to him. We've got to believe that he can take us somewhere better. And we've really got to commit to the process and what that looks like for us in our life. Jesus looked at everyone and he said, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. And every one of us are like, dear God, no, don't ask us to take our shoes and socks off in this place. Every one of us are thinking that, because that's what I'm saying like every single time. So like, Jesus is like, I'm your Lord, I'm your teacher, I'm your master, but will you let me be your leader? Will you let me lead you throughout the rest of your life? Because here's what it's going to look like. It is going to look like if you're chasing me, then you're going to find opportunities to live a humble story and serve the people closest to me. I tell you the truth, no one is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. And I would add, you'll be blessed if you do them, and you'll be bored if you don't. You will be blessed if you do them. And what that looks like for us, is like, man, what is the better story? Exalting myself or emptying myself? I don't know, try it out. Like, what would that require of you? What would it look like for you to take off your robe and serve the people around you? Rather than I tried this one day. I tried the opposite of this one day. I was just going to see how long Jesse could figure it out. I walked into the house and was just like, I put my backpack down and was just like, I'm going to see how long I can stay on this couch without having to get up, without having to do anything, and just expect everybody else to serve me. And it didn't work. Not even close. And I think every single one of us, we know that it doesn't work. We just don't know how we are supposed to humble ourselves. We don't know exactly what this really looks like. So, this is like, these are the anecdotes, and we're going to contrast the difference between exalting ourselves and emptying ourselves. Arrogance is the opposite of humility, one of the characteristics opposite of humility. Arrogance looks like us finding ourselves consistently being in a place where we're annoyed by all of the people around us, and you actually view yourself as more valuable and higher than all of the others. Arrogance looks like you'll find yourself consistently annoyed with other people, and you'll always view yourself as like, those people aren't really worth my time. And I suppose if you're looking at this from like the context, like the literary context of what's happening here in John 13, you would say Jesus literally emptied himself and took on the nature of a slave for the people who were getting ready to hurt him the worst. Bitterness is the second thing that will grow instead of humility if you aren't active. Bitterness looks like you refuse to celebrate the success of other people in your life or around your life, and you won't be able to identify that God made every single person uniquely. And bitterness is like, I can't find anything beautiful about you. I can't find anything great or redemptive about your story. Bitterness refuses to celebrate. Bitterness might show up to the party, but might hide in the corner. Bitterness sometimes within every single one of us is just the second layer and the second step to like allowing pride to continue to grow inside. And Jesus says, if you want to be like me, empty yourself instead of exalt yourself. The third thing, being chronically critical. Being chronically critical means that we consistently look for flaws and imperfections in everything and everyone, but cannot see our own flaws and imperfections. Like, being chronically critical means that we're never just allowed to be in the moment. We're constantly anticipating. And anticipation steals from one moment rather than being fully present in another. And Jesus says, listen, if you do these things, if you live this example that I have set out for you, you will be blessed if you do them. One leader showed it up this way, and I think it's so awesome. We're going to put it up here on the screen. It's an acronym for BLESS. It's going to help you remember this really well. You'll be able to practice humility. It's our hope. The B is begin with prayer. God, show me how you want to grow me. Show me who you want me to serve. There may be a particular person in your path that, like an act of humility, may be the first move that ends up changing a person's heart. Like you actually stepping outside of a title, outside of your role, outside of your job description to serve someone else. Why? Because love leads. You begin with prayer. God, where do you want me to go? Our alarms go off every day at 6:03, and we pray, God, who do you want me to serve? Who do you want me to love? Help me move closer. L, Dan mentioned this in the video, listen intensely. We live in a world that won't stop talking. Let's use it to our advantage. Like what could happen if we earn master's degrees and listening intensely? If you listen to someone long enough, you will hear exactly where their heart is. One time I read through the entire Gospels chronicling every single moment of Judas Iscariot, and it was like, boom, indicator of the heart. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And you just listen. If you're listening intently, like, what if God could be using you to be an agent of change, to help people be able to find the better story in their lives? People who are arrogant, people who are bitter, people who are chronically critical. What if we stopped avoiding all of those people? Because here's the reality. Like, I'm a recovering one of those people. I'm like in process. I'm like constantly coming before Jesus and I'm saying, less of me, less of me, less of me, more of you, more of you, more of you, more of you. And do you know what that will cost you? It'll cost you all of these moments that will never pay off. Pride promises what only humility can deliver. Every single one of us have this opportunity. Listen intensely. The E, eat together. Eat together, eat together, eat together, eat together. Maybe you need to recharge alone, and that's like totally cool, and that's totally okay. But there are some people in your circle and in your lives that like are tired and done with being alone. They're literally waiting and hoping that God would put somebody in their path to say, hey, do you want to go get a bite to eat? Do you want to go out to lunch? Do you want to go eat? Because here's what happens. Like, if you're struggling with humility, just eat a meal with somebody that is different than you. Okay? Because what happens is you like unzip your soul and all of a sudden you become way more human than you've ever been. Like you find that you have way more in common with people than you could have never, ever, 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 ever imagined. The first S, serve someone. If you listen long enough, if you begin with prayer, if you've eaten with somebody, then God's going to show you a way to serve whoever that person is in some way, shape, or form. That you would actually be able to humble yourself and serve them. The S, share your story. I think it's like remarkably incredible to listen to Dan and Michelle so bravely and courageously share their story of how God is continuing to grow them on their journey with Jesus. Literally, last fall, we had a lady named Lise show up at one of our Monday night services, and we asked her, hey, how did you find out about us? And she was literally like, I found you guys on the Meetup app. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Where are all the teenagers that can tell me about this app? I don't even know it exists. And somebody had posted that we have service on Monday nights at 7, and so she showed up. And like from like the get-go, everybody here loved her right where she was at. She's in her mid-50s, and she began to share her story over a period of time, and she struggled with a lot of childhood trauma and a lot of pain and hurt in her life. She joined a moving group and was meeting together with several people at Movement to help her figure out what it looks like to follow Jesus in her life. Struggling with medical issue after medical issue, earlier this year, she ended up in the hospital for 3 months. Several of our people went and prayed with her in the hospital. Corey and Amy Sullivan, her entire group visitor. Rich literally drove her car from the hospital back home because she couldn't do it. And while we were sitting there, she had no idea if she was going to be able to make it out. She had no idea what was getting ready to happen next, and she just kept asking, like, I don't feel like God is done with me. If he could just give me one more opportunity, if he could just give me one more chance. Lise gets out of the hospital and gets well. She asked to sit down and meet with us, and she tells us about like one of the people in her family were getting ready to be married, and she's felt like for a really long time that she's been a burden. And she said, how do I become a blessing when I've been a burden for all of these years? She's like, I know God has grown me, and I've never been more excited about life. Like, what does this actually look like? And so 2 Saturdays ago, Lise got ready and drove off in her car and ended up at a family member's wedding. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from her son. And her son had said, Mom passed away. She'd been struggling in and out of the doctor with different medical conditions, and she just like had some notes, and she asked that we kind of all get together and meet with you. We sat down with the family last week, and guys, this is what happens whenever you empty yourself and you say, like, I don't want more for me, I want more of Jesus for the people of the 603. Lise had literally wrote down, like, if I don't make it, I want these songs at a celebration of life for me, which is like, I want all of my family and friends to get to be exposed to the good news of Jesus. And I want to have like a worship service celebrating the work of God in my life. Because when I was at the lowest point of my life, I Googled meetup opportunities on a Monday night, and I found myself at 27 Depot Street. And so next Saturday, I don't know what you're doing at 4 o'clock, but we're going to be here, and we would love to pack the house. All of Lisa's friends and family, most of whom are outside of the kingdom because they've had horrible, hard experiences with the local church, and God began to redeem and rewrite this beautiful story. This song that we're going to sing together right now as we close out is called Raise a Hallelujah. And I don't know about you, and I don't know who God has put on your heart and who he is calling you to serve and who he is asking you to be a blessing to. But if you're not a singer kind of a person, we would just ask you to stand with us and pray. God, show me who you want me to serve today. God, show me who you want me to serve today. Would you stand to your feet and sing with us?